Hi, Melanie. So good to see you. Finally, we can talk.
Yes.
And I'm so curious what you have to share with me and with our listeners. So, just as a brief introduction, to tell us something about you and what you bring to the world.
First of all, thank you for inviting me and for giving me this opportunity to share what I love, and also, so nice to see you, see you again in this way. Well, I'm a Taotantric life and empowerment coach, and I work a lot around pleasure and the power of pleasure, and using the pleasure to basically manifest everything we want to have in our lives, to build the lives of our dreams. And that if we tap into our pleasure, that nothing is impossible. Everything is open, and there are millions and millions of opportunities for us out there.
Yeah, it's just opening up everything for me, like in my body, but also the possibilities. Like everything's possible, and pleasure can guide us there. As you also said, pleasure is power.
Yes, pleasure is true power. And it's a more sustainable power source, I would say. Of course, you can do everything without pleasure, and people are very successful out there without looking very much in their pleasure. You see them around all the time in politics and in big bosses of companies. But I think if you add pleasure to the equation, the success can be even more, and it can be more fulfilling as well. Because if we don't have pleasure while we are doing something, while we are working hard, basically, the success can feel very shallow. Like you reached certain goals, and then you think, what's next? And it's not being on, not enjoying, not being on the path, not enjoying the path, but always looking what's next. And that is usually not pleasurable. It's good to have those goals, it's good to have those desires, and it's good to really put energy into getting them. But if you forget the present moment, which is the only moment where we can be alive, where we can experience all those good things, it's not fun to get there. So pleasure is a true source of power, and even exceeding what you wanted to achieve.
It sounds so juicy and so good, and so well. Of course, I want to have pleasure in my life because I want to feel good in my body. I want to be happy. I want to just enjoy life and be present and just live life to the fullest. Yet so many of us, and me included, and I know for you the same, it's not a natural thing to do that. First of all, hearing about it, and then like, oh yeah, but really, do I need this? How do I need this? So why is it so difficult for us to take pleasure and to use pleasure in our lives?
Yeah. Well, I find it is strongly connected to shame for a lot of us. And even though we don't experience that consciously, there are unconscious patterns and mindsets that are connecting pleasure to shame. And this is basically caused by all the negative messages we are exposed in our day-to-day life. It starts with being in a certain family setting and having the models of our parents. And I don't want to offend anyone. I can totally say this from my own parents and from my own settings without even, wanting to blame anyone. It's just how it is in our society, in our culture. How they talk about sexual pleasure, but also pleasure in general. I grew up in South Germany, very conservative and very Catholic influence. So maybe not all of you listeners have the same conditions, but like the Catholic religion, the Christianity, is a big part of Western society. And even if you are not a believer or like a religious person, it still influences how culture is messaging, how culture is building the norms around how to be. So when you hear, not even connected to sensuality, sexuality, pleasure, but when you hear things like life is hard, no pain, no gain, everyone has their cross to bear. You have to be a nice girl, nice girls don't scream, nice girls don't get angry, and boys don't cry. And basically also that these messages around that you have to do something in order to receive something. This is also a strong thing that is keeping us from surrendering to pleasure, because pleasure can come out of doing, but the experience itself is also an surrendering to the experience, and this means you have to let go in a certain way in order to fully feel what's going on. And with this experience of pleasure, being connected to so much shame on different levels, it usually keeps us in our head and not in our bodies. So this is also something that disconnects us from the experience of receiving pleasure. Yeah.
So why is it so difficult for us to receive pleasure, to surrender? Like, what can help us to go there and to say, I don't have to work hard, but just to kind of let go and surrender?
And to feel good enough as you are in the present moment, I'd say the most important ingredient, maybe there are two, but the most important first ingredient is safety. You have to feel safe. And of course, there are factors you can put in place into in your environment, being at a externally safe place with people you feel safe around. But even more important is the safety you feel inside. So it's not only a state you have to create on the outside, it is very important to feel the safety on the inside. Because your body, your system has to trust you, ultimately has to trust you, that you can keep yourself safe. So it has to trust that you know what you need, and that you know what you want, and more importantly, that you know what you don't want, that you know your boundaries, and that you are able to express your boundaries, and that you state your boundaries, that you will stand up for your boundaries, no matter how much you love the person across from you, no matter how much you want to be loved by a group, no matter how much you are afraid of not belonging. You have to trust yourself to not give a fuck about all of this, but to trust that you stand up for your boundaries. And this is creating safety from the inside. That makes it, that only that makes it available for you to experience pleasure and bliss on high levels.
So really this deep pleasure where you're inside, you're surrendering, and you just let go, and kind of, when I understand you correctly, don't want to control, or you don't need to control what's happening, because you feel safe, and you don't need to control the pleasure, and just like let it expand and play with it.
And you don't control the pleasure, but you have the deep wisdom that you are in control of the situation. So of course, don't put yourself in unsafe situations, but even in the safest environment, if you don't feel safe inside yourself, you will never feel safe in this environment either, even if the context is right. So knowing you will stand up for yourself is also the wisdom that you are controlling the situation, even though you are totally surrendering and giving yourself into the pleasure. You know that you will switch into a defense if necessary.
So I hear what's important is trust, and first and foremost, trusting yourself that you will be like the guardian of your family. And it starts within as well.
And then also worthiness. worthiness is another big component, like really feeling it deep in your bones, in your system, that you are worthy of receiving pleasure, that you don't have to do anything, you don't have to achieve anything, you don't have to be in a certain way in order to be worthy to receive pleasure. That is also super important. So I think the safety has to be in place, but then this comes um, on top in a way that makes you able to expand your capacity of experiencing pleasure.
Yeah, and it comes back to the same thing, that you don't have to do anything. You can just, you don't have to earn your right
Yeah.
to receive pleasure. You just, like, you are worthy of pleasure the way you
Yes.
are. Yes.
Yeah.
That's also opening up so much freedom. It's like, I don't have to go anywhere. I'm it's good where I am right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You said freedom, and this is also so important, because the what happens if you are feeling unsafe and unworthy is you are contracting and you are limiting. So you are contracting and tensing up your whole system, your mind, your emotions, your body, and and it is necessary to be free to relax and expand in order to let this pleasure in that is available for you always at any time, and you can also be the source of pleasure yourself. So, but you have to surrender into this expansion. Yeah.
So can I ask you how you did that? What your path was?
Yeah, sure. So, as this is in a lot of cases that you are a good teacher if you had, if you went through through this same path, and if you were really on the other side and came out came out of it, that's when you are really good in feeling, other people's suffering and state, and also helping them in a beautiful way. Yeah, as I said, I grew up in a very conservative family and surrounding little village, very religious, and a lot of suffering in the family itself. Like the family history also is a history of suffering and, in a way, unhappiness, and not allowing to be happy. And I was pushing a lot. I was pushing a lot to go forward, to be independent in a way, to not need anything or anyone, and to not need anything at all. Like I really unlearned in a very early age to need, basically, like to really lower down my needs. I didn't feel my needs, and I definitely didn't feel any desire. And this went, of course, this is not like happening from, yesterday to tomorrow. It was a longer path. And from the outside, I had a very successful life. I went to high school, I went to university, I finished my diploma, I started a PhD, and then it got really bad because I was, overworking all the time, and there was no pleasure whatsoever in my life, and I didn't even notice it. I didn't even notice it. And then I fell into really existential depression, which also was coming along the way. But in these phases, I didn't feel anything. Like I didn't feel myself. I didn't feel any, not even pain, I would say. I just felt nothing. I think that's also the core of depression, feeling nothing. It's not about sadness. That's a very common misunderstanding about being about being clinically depressed, but about feeling nothing. And I was totally disconnected from my body, from my needs, from my desires, from any also then any sense in life. And I think that is also a key point, that pleasure connects you to life. It's the pleasure that brings this hunger for life, you know, to go forward and to experience more, and to, even though yes, life can still be a struggle, but if you learn your system that there even can be pleasure in pain, or that there can be pleasure in struggling, there is nothing to fear anymore, because you know that you always can resource in the pleasure. So my path in the last decade was basically to reconnect to my body and my needs and my pleasure and my desire and my and then my sensuality and my sexuality. Yeah, and I'm super happy thinking about where I'm coming from.
Yes.
To be here now, you know, teaching this. And yeah, and I just want to tell everyone, like, there's no hopeless situation, and there's nothing wrong with you. Definitely nothing organically wrong with you. If you can't feel the pleasure right now, if you can't feel if you can't have orgasms, it has never something to do with well, don't never say never. There might be like 1% possibility that it can be organically, but like 99%, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just a matter of reconnecting to your natural state, because that's what it is. You know, in our natural state, we are pleasure. And as babies, this is all we know, pleasure.
Yeah.
And then it starts by, you know, you can touch yourself, don't do that, dress up and sit straight, and then we unlearn that this is our natural state. But as it is our natural state, we can always go back there. It's just a way of unlearning the patterns we learned and rewiring our brains. And yeah.
That's beautiful. And for sure, me, if I was listening, it was like, yes, I know what Melanie's talking about. It's like I don't feel very much. And I want to get to a state of pleasure and aliveness. Um, do you have a practice that you can share with us right now, that we don't have to like look up other resources, but can start right now, like while listening to this video, to this podcast? Um,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah,
Love to share it. How much time do we have? Should I have the
like 7 minutes.
time? 5 minutes?
7.
7 minutes. Okay. Beautiful. So I invite you out there who are listening. Thanks for listening first. It's a pleasure to know that you are listening and that you are there. So you can find a comfortable seat or even lie down. We want to do this as pleasurable as possible. And then you and then you can close your eyes softly and just take a few deep breaths. And if you feel like it, sighing on the exhale, giving a sound on the exhale to your breath. And you inhale deep into your lower belly, maybe even touching your pelvic floor, your genitals with your breath. And then exhaling and fully letting go. Take note of any tension you can feel in your body right now, and maybe give yourself the chance to move a little bit, to go into a little stretching, a little movement, maybe also moving your jaw. There's usually always so much tension there. And then I invite you to choose a fruit that you really love to eat. Decide on one fruit. And if you don't like fruits at all, then think about something else you love to eat. maybe a piece of chocolate. But if you can't find a fruit, because it's more fun as I guide you through the more to the fruit experience. So you decide on this fruit that you really love. Maybe it's also a little bit hard to get in where you live, and you don't have it that often. And I invite you to see this fruit in front of your closed eyes and really visualize this fruit. Take in the color, take in that it has the perfect state of ripeness, that it's so ready to be eaten by you. Just look at it. What can you see? And while I keep on looking at it, I want you to try to smell it now. How does the fruit smell? It is perfectly ripe. All the senses coming from that fruit into your nose. And I invite you to assume how it will taste when in a moment you will take your first bite. But before that, just imagine how it will taste. What taste do you have in your mouth? Now I invite you to imagine to take this first bite. You bring this fruit closer to your mouth, you smell it even more, you see it even more, the vibrancy, the aliveness that is in this fruit. And now you're taking your first bite. What do you taste? You can take another bite if you want. Feeling also the textures in your mouth now. And then you can let go of this experience, feeling the afterglow, how easy it is to awaken your senses. And this is the door into the state of pleasure, are your senses basically. One of our organs to experience pleasure is also our brain. As you also could see now, because there is not even the necessity of a real fruit to experience this pleasure. And it's the small things really that gets us started to open up for pleasure. Because every experience is like a piece of mental and emotional and physical health. And the more we open up to see that, to be aware of that, the more we start the spiral of getting more and more aware and opening more and more, and with more pleasure comes more pleasure. That's just the cosmic law, like the same attracts same. Where is energy, there comes more energy. Where there is pleasure, there always comes more pleasure. So there's nothing to fear around that. It will, it's only a path forward. And this is one possible door to experience more pleasure, to really be present with what you are doing, even just, having a sip of tea or a coffee or a fruit or a piece of chocolate. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Melanie, for this wonderful short guided five senses meditation into our pleasure, and it's something I can do every day. It's my choice. I can do every minute. Like when I touch something, I can choose to
Yes.
feel the pleasure. So it's not nothing I have to wait for.
No, yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that, because that is so important what you're saying. And I did mention it. It is a choice. It is a choice. It's your personal choice if you want to experience pleasure right here, right now, no matter the circumstances, or not. And I, for myself, can say it's always much more fun to choose the pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for this interview and for sharing what your experience was and uh, how we can learn to tap into our pleasures even more on a daily basis, on a minute to minute basis.
Mm.
So practical. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for asking all those smart and focused questions. That made it really easy to answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So how can we find you? And what do you have to offer to us?
Well, I am offering one-on-one coachings, usually on a longer path. But it's a very personal and individual one-on-one coaching with a Taotantric background. And I also give workshops in my base in Berlin around pleasure, mostly for women right now, but also for couples, like tantric foreplay workshops, for example. And I do them internationally as well. Yeah, and you can connect to me. You can connect with me through Facebook.
Yeah.
I don't know how this works. Do you put, like, there will be my name or something? Yeah, so you can basically look me up on Facebook. I also have an Instagram account. I'm happy to connect and hear from you. And I'm also happy if you want to share your story around pleasure and maybe your path where you are coming from. It's, I love to hear all of that. And I also have a website. It's basically just melaniewenzel.net. And maybe you put that into any description as well so that people can look that up. Yeah.
So melaniewenzel.net
Yes.
and on Facebook. And as you heard, Melanie is not only working in Berlin, in Germany, but also worldwide.
Yes, that's true.
Thank
And
God.
I have a lot of pleasure around that. Being able to do that, I feel so so grateful. Yeah.
Thank you again for connecting.
Thank
It was
you.
a pleasure having you.
It was a pleasure for me too. We talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye.